My name is Robert Gaines, 72 years old, American, widower. Retired maintenance supervisor for the Indianapolis Public Schools. A life spent fixing boilers, clearing drains, replacing broken hinges, keeping buildings safe for children who never noticed the work until it failed. For most of my life, problems had weight. A leak left water on the floor. A fuse blew and the lights went out. A cracked belt squealed until someone replaced it. Evidence stayed visible. If something broke, it broke in public. Then I got old enough for people to speak around me instead of with me. It began with a fall and a soft lie that sounded like love, a temporary stay, a few weeks, a safer house, someone nearby if anything happened. My wife Diane had been gone for 3 months, a stroke on a quiet Sunday afternoon. One moment she was folding laundry, the next moment she was on the kitchen tile with her eyes open and her hand reaching for mine, already drifting away. The ambulance came fast, the paramedics worked hard, and then the house went silent in a way I didn't understand until later. Grief turned our home into a museum of ordinary objects. Her slippers by the couch, her coffee mug in the sink, her cardigan hanging on the back of a chair, like she might slip into it again. Diane and I met in 1973 at a small diner off Keystone Avenue. I had grease under my nails and a paycheck that never seemed to stretch far enough. She had a laugh that could fill a room and a stare that could stop a man from making excuses. We married young. We argued about money and weather and the best way to load a dishwasher. We raised Aaron on factory hours and school calendars and late-night homework. We survived the kind of normal hardships that feel unbearable in the moment and laughable later. A minivan that died in a grocery parking lot, a flooded basement that turned photo albums into cardboard mush, a Christmas with no gifts except a new space heater and a plate of cookies from a neighbor. Diane never wanted fancy. She wanted steady. A home you could trust. A husband who came back. A daughter who felt safe. She had a gift for noticing the quiet people and the forgotten ones. She remembered birthdays. She remembered who needed help carrying groceries. She remembered the little names that slip out of other people's heads. After she died, all that remembering disappeared from the house. A calendar on the fridge still had her handwriting on it. I kept looking at those loops and curves like they were a map that might guide me back. I tried to remain in our place. I tried to do the things Diane always did. Grocery runs, medicine refills, bills, the nightly routine of locking doors and turning off lights. Every task carried extra weight without her voice, without the small corrections, without another person sharing the air. Some mornings I caught myself setting out 2 cups without thinking. Other mornings I reached for her phone to ask her a question and found it still sitting in her nightstand drawer, dead and quiet. The loneliness made time feel strange. Days stretched thin, then snapped into weeks without warning. Then my knee gave out on the back steps. A wet leaf, a misplaced foot, a sudden drop. No broken bones, only bruises and swelling that turned my leg into a stiff piece of wood for 2 weeks. Enough for my daughter, Erin, to panic. Erin lived in Carmel with her husband, Jeff, and their 2 boys. A clean house in a clean neighborhood, lawns trimmed like carpets, cars washed every weekend. Erin worked remote for a health insurance company. Jeff managed a warehouse and wore stress like a second skin. Both of them carried a constant pressure to look like they were handling everything. That pressure leaked out in small ways. Jeff snapping at the boys over cereal spills, Erin apologizing too often for tiny things, both of them checking their phones like bad news lived inside them. Erin arrived at my place the day after the fall and moved through the rooms like a firefighter searching for smoke. Her eyes kept finding hazards: the throw rug by the door, the old staircase, the shower without grab bars. Fear in her face looked genuine. The fear had another layer too. the kind that grows when a person realizes they cannot control everything. The solution came fast. A packed suitcase, a promise of comfort, a gentle insistence that sounded reasonable. I agreed because grief makes a person tired, and tired people accept convenience as care. The guest room at Aaron's house held a bed with a thick comforter and a window facing a backyard swing set. The first night brought a strange quiet. No creaking floorboards from Diane moving around. No familiar scent of her shampoo in the hallway. Only the hum of a different refrigerator and the distant sound of a neighborhood road. The fall healed. The bruises faded. My knee loosened. The weeks should have ended. They did not. Aaron worried about leaving me alone during the day. Jeff worried about schedules and work calls. The boys treated me like a visitor who might disappear any day. A house like theirs ran on routines, and I did not fit any routine anymore. A caregiver became the next practical step. Part-time, only during work hours. Someone to keep company, make lunch, help with laundry, drive to the pharmacy. The agency sent a woman named Clara Whitfield, late 30s, calm presence, professional clothes, a tidy notebook with a logo on the front, a badge clipped to her collar. She smelled faintly of citrus and soap. She walked through the house with quiet competence and covered the right points. Allergies, routines, medications, my knee, my preferences. Clara respected space. No hovering, no baby talk, no pity. A real adult. For the first week, everything felt easier. Breakfast happened at a normal hour. Lunch appeared without me needing to request help. The house stayed quiet while Aaron worked upstairs. Clara drove me to the pharmacy and waited with patience. She sorted my pill organizer carefully and wrote notes with neat handwriting. My appetite returned. Sleep improved. I caught myself laughing once at a story one of the boys shared. That laugh startled me, like a muscle waking up after a long freeze. Clara also did one other thing that mattered. She looked at me like a person who still belonged in the room. Not a responsibility, not a problem, not a schedule disruption. A person. Then the first tiny crack appeared. A headache in the afternoon, heavier than normal. A drowsiness that settled behind my eyes like fog. Clara checked my blood pressure and logged it in her book. Slightly low. More water. Rest. Rest arrived fast and deep. Too deep. My body fell through the bed like someone flipped a switch. When I woke, the room felt thick. Slow. The edges of objects looked softer. My mouth tasted faintly metallic. Clara offered tea and a reassuring smile. Hydration. Calm. Normal. The next day, the fog returned. The day after that, a spill happened at the kitchen counter because my hands moved a half-second behind my intention. Aaron noticed. The worried look returned, sharper. Clara's notebook filled with observations. Fatigue, dizziness, confusion. Confusion. That word has teeth when it lands on older people. My life became a collection of small moments that looked suspicious from the outside. A missed step on the stairs. A forgotten word in the middle of a sentence. A pause too long while searching for my keys. Grief does those things. Age does those things. But something else was happening. Something that did not fit. It did not happen every day. It happened on Clara's days. When Clara wasn't there, my mind felt clearer. My body felt steadier. Not perfect, not young, just mine. I began paying attention in the way I always had on a job site. Not with paranoia, with observation. Patterns, timing, inputs and outputs. What changed, when, and under what conditions. The fog had a schedule. It did not behave like random aging. Then Clara called in sick. Aaron mentioned it at breakfast and tried to sound casual. A temporary substitute would arrive. Same agency, same training, no difference. A simple swap in a calendar, nothing more. The substitute arrived at 10. A woman with the same agency polo shirt and the same clipped badge. Same first name, too. Clara. Except the person in the doorway was not the person who had been in the house all week. Different face, different posture, different hands, different energy in the room. A small tattoo near the wrist, a faint scar at the eyebrow, eyes that scanned the house like a map. The badge carried the same first name, and the last name was partially covered by the clip. The photo was too small to read clearly from across the room. Erin greeted her quickly, distracted by a work call, and waved her in without more than a glance. Jeff wasn't home. The boys were at school. Only me and the new Clara stood in the hallway. A slow chill spread through my chest. The new Clara smiled, practiced and smooth. A bag set on the floor, shoes off, a quiet move toward the kitchen. A scent followed her, not citrus and soap. Something sweeter, heavier. The day unfolded differently. Less conversation, more watching. She moved through the house with a confidence that felt borrowed. Doors opened without hesitation. Drawers opened as if she already knew what lived inside them. My medicine cabinet received a long look. My wallet on the side table received a longer one. Lunch arrived earlier. A bowl of soup with a sharp flavor, like herbs fighting to hide bitterness. I ate half and pushed it away. The new Clara moved the bowl closer with gentle pressure underneath the politeness. A full bowl mattered. The fog arrived within an hour, heavier than before. My eyes fought to stay open while the living room drifted away like a boat leaving shore. Sleep came too fast, too deep. When I woke, my pockets felt lighter. No obvious loss, just the sense that something had been touched. My wallet remained, my phone remained. The house looked normal, but my body felt wrong. My mind felt delayed. Thoughts moved through syrup. The new Clara wrote in her notebook and kept it close, never leaving it on the counter the way the real Clara did. That night, Erin sat across from me at the kitchen table. Her eyes were tired and scared. Concern poured out. Worry about falls. Worry about confusion. Mention of the agency log showing more decline. A suggestion drifted into the air. A memory screening, a doctor consult, a safety plan. The word safe returned again. My stomach tightened. The next 2 weeks became a pattern. Normal mornings, foggy afternoons on caregiver days, clearer days when the caregiver was gone. Small incidents documented in that notebook. A dropped glass, a misplaced remote, confusion about the date. Erin began leaving sticky notes around the house. Reminders for pills, reminders to drink water, reminders about what day it was. The notes made me feel smaller. The new caregiver encouraged it, praising Erin for being proactive. A comment floated into the kitchen within earshot about progression. Progression. Another sharp word. The thermostat began dropping at night. Not by much. A couple degrees. Enough to make the guest room colder. Enough to make my joints ache in the morning. Erin blamed the smart thermostat. Jeff blamed the electric company. The caregiver offered to manage it for consistency. Consistency became a leash. Mail began arriving already opened. Not everything. Just envelopes with bank logos and insurance logos. Erin insisted it was accidental, a mix-up, a pile on the counter. The caregiver began collecting the mail to keep it organized. Organization became another leash. My phone began needing a passcode more often. Settings shifted. Notifications disappeared. A banking app logged out. A password prompt appeared that I did not recognize. The caregiver noticed my frustration and reached for the phone like it belonged to her. A refusal came from me, calm but firm. Her smile tightened for a fraction of a second, then returned. The fog arrived earlier that day. Another tactic arrived soon after. Isolation. Denise Caldwell, my neighbor across the street, had brought casseroles after Diane died and never treated me like glass. Retired nurse in her late 60s. A woman who had watched families tear each other apart over fear and inheritance and guilt. A woman who recognized patterns. One afternoon, Denise knocked and dropped off a small container of chili, and the caregiver intercepted at the door like a bouncer. A polite conversation followed between them, full of smiles and no need, and everything handled. Denise never stepped past the threshold. Denise never even reached my ears that day. That night, Denise texted my old flip phone, the one Aaron kept trying to replace with something simpler. The message was short, something off. Call when alone. My flip phone still worked. Simple buttons, simple battery. No biometrics, no accounts, no silent remote control. The next morning, during a slow walk around the block, a quiet conversation happened on Denise's driveway. Denise listened without interrupting. A slow nod, a steady gaze. A few careful questions came from her. Any recent medication changes? Any new supplements? Any new teas? Only what the caregiver offered. Denise's jaw tightened. A suggestion followed. Keep a written timeline and get an independent medical evaluation, including blood work. Another suggestion. Contact Adult Protective Services if exploitation seemed possible. Another. Avoid confronting the caregiver alone. Denise offered a ride to a clinic outside our immediate area, one Aaron and Jeff would not recognize, one connected to a hospital system with real labs. 2 days later, an appointment happened. No family involvement. No caregiver involvement. A clean record created by professionals with no stake in the household. The physician reviewed my medication list, listened to the timeline, ordered basic tests. Results returned the next day. No dementia indicators. No significant cognitive decline. Mild grief-related insomnia. Slight dehydration. One abnormal finding. A sedative class substance present that had not been prescribed. No details about how. No details about quantity. Only a fact on paper that transformed suspicion into proof. Denise insisted on another step. Documentation of competence. A neuropsych evaluation scheduled with a specialist an hour away. A thorough assessment. Results in writing. My mind tested steady. Memory intact. Judgment intact. No impairment consistent with the household narrative. 2 clean documents now existed outside Aaron's control. The next step involved law. An elder law attorney in Indianapolis, Mariah Jensen, former prosecutor. Special focus on exploitation and guardianship defense. A reputation built on patience and steel. A meeting happened in her office with Denise present for support. Mariah listened, reviewed the lab result, reviewed the neuropsych report, reviewed my timeline notes. A simple statement came from her, calm and serious. This looked like attempted medical coercion paired with financial access. Any guardianship petition without consent could be challenged. Evidence needed preservation. Immediate safety steps needed to happen. Mariah explained something that made my skin crawl. Emergency guardianship petitions sometimes land on a judge's desk with one-sided evidence. A concerned family, a caregiver's notes, a claim that the older adult refused help, a claim of danger. Sometimes, temporary control gets granted before the target even understands the filing. A person can wake up with their accounts frozen and their freedom rented out to someone else. Mariah laid out options. Formal notice to the agency. Report to Adult Protective Services. Protective order if the caregiver attempted to return. Bank account security. Mail routing. Housing plan. A difficult question landed. Was Aaron complicit or simply manipulated by the caregiver and by family stress? The truth felt messy. Aaron loved me. Aaron also loved control. Aaron also lived with fear, and fear makes people reach for shortcuts. Jeff cared about stability more than dignity. Bills mattered, schedules mattered, appearances mattered. He also carried a private panic about money that Aaron never fully acknowledged in front of the kids. The caregiver's presence provided a convenient reason to hand over responsibility. Mariah's next tool was simple: a notarized declaration of intent and competence with counsel. A document confirming my wishes, my refusal of unauthorized evaluations, my refusal of guardianship without due process, and my designation of an independent advocate. Denise Caldwell. A legal shield in advance, so the first court filing would not meet an empty record. Then came the hardest part: evidence. A camera. A small motion-activated device placed in my guest room on a shelf, disguised as a clock. Visible enough not to feel criminal, quiet enough to capture what mattered. Recordings saved to a secure account with a password known only to me and Mariah. A second camera in the hallway, focused on the mail drop zone near the front door. A logbook kept in my pocket, with times, dates, symptoms, caregiver presence, and any unusual food or drinks. No confrontation, no accusations inside the house. Only quiet observation. The caregiver returned 3 days in a row. Each day followed the same curve. A drink offered mid-morning, a meal with a bitter edge, fog descending within an hour, a long sleep that felt forced. On the second day, the camera captured a moment that turned my stomach. The caregiver entered the guest room while I appeared asleep. The drawer opened, a small metal box lifted. My old checkbook removed and examined. A photo taken with her phone. The box returned. The drawer closed. On the third day, the hallway camera captured the mail being pulled from the slot and placed directly into the caregiver's tote bag. That afternoon, the caregiver stood in the kitchen with Aaron and Jeff and tapped her notebook, presenting the day's narrative. Confusion, fatigue, inability to manage medications, safety concerns. A recommendation followed: an in-home doctor visit and a guardianship consult. Aaron's eyes filled. Jeff rubbed his temples. The boys stayed quiet. The household leaned toward the caregiver's calm certainty like people in a storm leaning toward a lighthouse, not realizing the lighthouse was dragging them onto rocks. A date was placed on the calendar. A home evaluation. Only to be safe. 2 days before the scheduled evaluation, another incident happened by design. My debit card stopped working at the grocery store when Denise and I attempted a small purchase. The cashier scanned it twice. A decline message flashed. The card worked the day before. A call to the bank from Denise's phone revealed a new phone number attached to my account. Not mine. A change of address request had been initiated online. My throat went dry. Someone inside Aaron's house was trying to become me. Mariah moved fast. A freeze placed on the account. A new account opened. A fraud flag filed. Paper statements rerouted to a post office box Mariah arranged that same afternoon. Back at Aaron's house, the caregiver acted surprised and sympathetic, offering help with the confusion around banking. The offer landed like poison. Another incident arrived at night. The guest room door, always left slightly open, was fully closed when I woke at 2 a.m. The handle resisted for a second, then loosened. A child-proof latch? A hook? Something temporary removed before morning? A quiet warning. Movement in this house could become restricted whenever convenient. Mariah prepared for the evaluation day like a mechanic preparing a workspace for a difficult repair. Tools arranged, steps mapped, no surprises allowed. The morning of the scheduled evaluation, the house buzzed with nervous energy. Aaron cleaned countertops. Jeff paced. The caregiver moved through rooms with tight efficiency, placing papers in neat piles, setting a chair in the living room facing the couch like a staging area. At 10 sharp, a knock came. Not the evaluator. Mariah, a calm entrance, a professional smile, a folder in hand. The caregiver's face tightened immediately. A glance toward Aaron. A glance toward the door, calculation visible. Mariah introduced herself as counsel for Robert Gaines and placed the notarized declaration along with the neuropsych evaluation and lab results on the coffee table. The room shifted. Aaron's face drained of color. Jeff's eyebrows lifted, then pulled together in anger and confusion. The caregiver attempted a pivot, speaking in professional tones about concern and safety. Mariah held the line with calm authority. No evaluation without direct consent. No guardianship filing without due process. No further access to my medications, finances, or mail. A second knock came at the door. The real evaluator arrived. A physician contracted for home visits through an agency partner. The caregiver moved quickly, trying to control the entry. Mariah intercepted with the documents and a clear refusal. The visit was declined. The evaluator was not my treating physician. Consent was withdrawn. Any continued attempt would be reported. The evaluator read the papers, hesitated, and stepped back. A polite exit followed. No debate, no drama, a professional recognizing risk. The caregiver's mask slipped fully for the first time. A tight jaw, a stare with anger underneath, a controlled breath. Aaron's tears began. Jeff's voice sharpened, aimed in every direction at once. The boys watched from the hallway with wide eyes, sensing something big without understanding it. Mariah opened her laptop and played 2 short clips. The guest room clip. The caregiver entering my room and photographing my checkbook. The hallway clip. The caregiver collecting mail into her bag. A third document landed on the coffee table. The lab report showing an unprescribed sedative class substance. Silence followed. A thick silence. Aaron covered her mouth. Tears ran down her cheeks. Jeff's anger found a new target. The caregiver's posture shifted. The professional calm evaporated into defensive stiffness. A denial came first. A claim of misunderstanding. A claim of protocol. A claim of mix-ups. Mariah's voice stayed flat and controlled. A report had already been filed with Adult Protective Services. The agency would be contacted. Law enforcement would be contacted. A protective order would be pursued if the caregiver attempted to return. The caregiver reached for her tote bag and moved toward the door quickly. Mariah blocked the path without touching her, simply standing where the caregiver needed to pass. A request followed for identification. Full name, badge number, agency assignment. The badge clipped to the polo was turned toward Aaron and Jeff for the first time with real attention. The last name was not Whitfield. The photo did not match the real Clara Whitfield's face. The switch was no longer a metaphor. It was a fact. The caregiver's eyes narrowed, then darted toward the door again. A quick attempt to push past happened. Jeff moved instinctively, stepping between her and the exit. The caregiver backed off and pulled her phone out, pretending to call the agency. Mariah pulled out her own phone and dialed a number already prepared. Adult Protective Services. Immediate concern. Active attempted exploitation. Identity inconsistency. Evidence available. A third knock happened, this one not scheduled. A uniformed officer arrived with an APS caseworker, responding to Mariah's call and the earlier filed report. The caregiver froze. Her eyes moved like a trapped animal's eyes. The tote bag sat heavy on her shoulder. The officer requested identification. The caregiver handed over the badge, then hesitated over a driver's license that did not match the name on the badge. The caseworker looked at the videos, looked at the lab report, looked at my neuropsych evaluation. The caregiver received a direct instruction to leave the premises and cease contact. No cuffs, no scene. Only the quiet removal of a predator once light hits the room. The caregiver left in a hurry, shoulders rigid, face hard, the front door shut, a quiet click, then a silence that felt like the air after a storm passes, heavy with debris. Erin broke first. A flood of apologies. Guilt spilling everywhere. Fear about what could have happened. Fear about what almost did happen. Jeff sat down hard on the couch and stared at the floor. A man who had wanted the problem to be handled now had to face what handled nearly meant. Mariah kept the focus on steps, not emotion. Bank accounts needed securing. Credit monitoring needed activation. Mail needed routing to the post office box. My own home needed protection. The caregiver agency needed a formal complaint. Erin and Jeff needed to understand the difference between worry and control. My voice stayed quiet. The house no longer felt safe. A move needed to happen quickly. Erin pleaded for time. Jeff pleaded for forgiveness. Love poured out with desperation, real and messy, a boundary held firm. 2 days later, I moved into a short-term rental condo near the canal in downtown Indianapolis. 1 bedroom, clean, quiet, locks I controlled, temperature I controlled, mail I controlled. Denise visited every morning for the first week, not as a nurse, as a witness and a friend. Mariah checked in regularly, guiding the legal steps. Adult Protective Services opened a case. Investigators interviewed me, Erin, Jeff, and the agency. The agency launched an internal review. The real Clara Whitfield confirmed she had called in sick and never authorized a same-name replacement. A supervisor had arranged coverage with sloppy documentation. That supervisor had also mishandled other cases in the past, treating clients like interchangeable appointments. The supervisor resigned within a month. The replacement caregiver vanished, identity unclear, badge likely fake. The lab report and the videos triggered criminal investigation and insurance fraud review. The case moved slowly, like real cases do. No movie chase. No dramatic arrest at the door. Only paperwork, interviews, subpoenas, and accountability arriving like weather. Gradual, then unavoidable. In the middle of that slow process, I learned something else. Erin and Jeff had been under financial strain. Not foreclosure, not disaster, but enough that help looked tempting. Jeff's warehouse had cut overtime. Medical bills from the boys' broken arms and dental work stacked up. Erin's company had reduced bonuses. The caregiver agency felt like a solution that also shifted responsibility away from them. Fear and money and exhaustion make people easy to manipulate. Erin tried to repair the damage in ways that mattered and ways that did not. Offers of money, offers of upgrades to the guest room, offers to switch agencies. The apology that mattered involved one thing: respect for autonomy. Time passed. The fog disappeared completely once the caregiver left the picture. Sleep returned. Appetite returned. My knee felt stronger than it had in months, as if my body had been fighting invisible chains. A bitter understanding remained. If Denise and Mariah had not stepped in, the story could have ended with a court signature and a locked facility bed. A person can lose freedom quickly when a narrative forms around confusion. A narrative is a tool, too. Used well, it protects. Used poorly, it cages. 6 months after the caregiver fled, Erin invited me to dinner at her house. A small meal, no caregivers, no paperwork, no sticky notes on counters. The thermostat set warm. Jeff looked tired. The boys looked older. Erin's eyes held a different kind of humility. Dinner stayed quiet. Not tense, only careful. Like a repaired wire, insulated but still remembered. A walk followed afterward in the backyard. Erin and I stood near the swing set with the wind moving through bare branches. A truth surfaced without ceremony. Fear drove the control. Fear of losing me. Fear of managing life. Fear of the unknown. Fear opened the door to the wrong person. Another truth followed. The door stayed open too long because control felt easier than trust. Erin looked down at the grass and held her hands together, shaking slightly. A simple statement from her landed in the cold air. The need to stop making decisions for me and start making decisions with me. No grand forgiveness moment happened. Real forgiveness does not arrive in a single breath. A boundary remained. A connection remained too. Fragile but real. The next year, Mariah helped me establish a small nonprofit with a simple mission: emergency legal support and temporary housing for seniors facing coercion tied to guardianship and financial exploitation, especially cases involving caregivers. The name: Switchback. A reminder that once the trail turns steep, turning back can save a life. Workshops at libraries, partnerships with credit unions, checklists for families explaining safety without control. A direct line to lawyers when a stranger with a badge and a notebook tried to write someone's freedom away. The first client came from a church in Kentucky, a woman with a caregiver who organized her mail, a bank account that kept forgetting passwords, a family that believed the caregiver more than the woman herself. The pattern repeated. Different house, same shape. The second client came from Michigan, a man whose nephew pushed a guardianship petition for safety while quietly selling a truck and draining a small savings account. The third came from Indiana, a couple pressured into signing home care documents that were actually financial authorizations. The work grew slowly, not flashy, not heroic, just practical shields. A year after the switch, a letter arrived in my post office box with a return address from Aaron's home. Inside was a single page, a written apology. No excuses, no demands, no requests for money or forgiveness, only ownership of harm and a commitment to ask before acting. The page ended with one line that mattered: a commitment to respect boundaries, even when fear surged. I placed the letter in a drawer beside Diane's old recipe cards, not as proof of victory, as proof of learning. Because the real enemy in this story was not only one caregiver. It was the assumption that age equals incompetence. It was the comfort of handing someone else your keys because it feels easier than staying awake. Modern life is complicated. Phones change, passwords multiply, paperwork grows teeth. But the basic rule stays the same. Care does not require control. Help does not require secrecy. Safety does not require taking someone's freedom. If a stranger ever walks into your home wearing a badge and carrying a notebook full of concerns, pay attention to one detail: whether the person looks at you like a human being or like a file.